Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now today I want to share with you my Nintendo DS and 3DS game collection. But before we do that, I just wanted to talk very briefly, hopefully, about my love of that whole range of consoles. I had sort of lost interest in portable handheld gaming in the noughties. Really, for various reasons, it just sort of dwindled out of my life. And the last big sort of handheld gaming purchase that I'd made, a bespoke console as opposed to a smartphone, was back in 2003, and that was the Game Boy Advance SP. And I bought that specifically in order to play this game, and that was the release of Zelda: Link to the Past and the Four Swords Adventure. And this was an excellent game. It really made that purchase worthwhile, and I was happy. I then went off to university in 2004, and that was pretty much it for me. And through hard work and through just not having any money, the release of the DS in 2005, the DS Lite in 2006, so on and so forth, the 3DS in 2011, really just sort of went over my head. In 2010, for example, I was getting married, and all this stuff was just kind of ephemeral. I knew it was happening because I've always been interested in games and gaming media, but I just wasn't intrigued by it. At least I didn't think I was, until in 2011 with the 3DS we had Mario Kart 7, and that intrigued me because I suddenly became aware that I'd missed out, because I think it was something to do with the number 7. I was aware that I'd missed out on a whole realm of gaming and gaming releases. And then I started to realise, of course there've been Zelda games, there've been Mario Kart games, there've been I'd heard great things about Professor Layton, this kind of thing. And so it was in 2011, 2012 that I was able to get my hands on a DS Lite. Very much second hand, but crucially it was the last gaming console in the DS range that could be backwards compatible with the Game Boy Advance, and that really appealed to me. And so actually what I did was I went to Cash Converters and I picked up the DS Lite, and it came with a Rock Band add-on, so you could push the buttons and strum the guitar, and that was an interesting thing. I've got still got that DS Lite and the Rock Band add-on upstairs. But really it was the other games that got me hooked on the system idea, and then bit by bit I sort of upgraded. So by 2014 I had a DSi XL, the sort of the Mario 25th anniversary version, and recently, or most recently in 2015, I got my hands on the new 3DS, the smaller version of the two, but nonetheless, frankly, those are from some fairly big screens compared to what had come before in the DS range. So that's kind of been my DS story, and it really did actually, in that sense, the DS really did bring me back from the dead. It certainly brought my portable gaming life back from the dead. So this system means an awful lot to me, and it also actually rekindled my interest in, for example, playing with my Game Boy Advance again, and so on and so forth. So it means an awful lot. Now, just before we dive into the game collection, I just want to quickly just mention that the reason I ended up getting the new 3DS, it wasn't inevitable. I got it because it finally seemed like an investment worth making. I'd been playing the 3DS in the sort of the have-a-go stands in computer game stores for a while, where they're sort of anchored to the floor. And the 3D always seemed very fragile. You move your head, you move the console a bit, and the illusion was shattered. And it felt like a gimmick, to be honest. But with the release of the new 3DS, I knew that with the eye tracking technology, and having tried it out in the store for myself, that the 3D was finally here to stay, as it were. Both literally and figuratively. And so I figured, okay, the 3DS is now a thing. It's not just like an add-on gimmick. And also, frankly, the promise of being able to one day play Majora's Mask on this console was also very intriguing. So that's why I invested, and that's really always been my story with these consoles. It's been once the console matures to a point of actually being, I suppose, a viable and safe bet investment, because I'm not a millionaire, I can't afford to buy everything, then I usually give it a go. And so with the DS, when it first released, yes, I was busy in uni, but also as well it felt like a bit of a new gimmick. Okay, it was backwards compatible with the Game Boy Advance, but I wasn't sure about it. But bit by bit I became more and more sure about it, more intrigued, and hoped so eventually I got the DS Lite when I could. Anyway, let's dive into the game library and or the game collection. And here we have my my little game folder. I've got this from the Pound Shop. So it's this lovely sort of leather effect or rubbery sort of Nintendo DS on the side. It's a bit, actually, to these days, it's a bit full, a bit hard to keep closed, but but I do my best. So in no particular order, let's dive in. So first of all, I'm so happy that they did this, and that is that they released some good solid Wario games. This is Wario Master of Disguise on the DS. It does feel very much like a third-party game, which it is. It's not produced by Nintendo directly, or so developed by them directly. But it's a fun little Wario title, very quirky, and again, it's good for sort of on the go gameplay. Next we have CSI Deadly Intent. Now this game is one which very much like, I suppose, many of the games in the DS library, is essentially a point-and-click adventure with some light puzzle elements to it. But it's one of the better ones. I've got much worse ones in this particular library, believe me. Next we have a game which really, I think, intrigued me because it takes advantage of some of these console features, and I always like a game that takes advantage of console features, and that is Drawn to Life. So basically you could use your stylus to draw, for example, your game character, make changes in the game world to progress gameplay. Drawn to Life is a fun little title for the DS. Next we have a game which I didn't think was going to be that good, but it actually is one of the best Star Wars games I've ever played, and that is Star Wars Episode 3. Star Wars Episode 3 is, it plays like a good old-fashioned, almost Mega Drive or SNES side-scrolling action-adventure with anime-ish style graphics and really fun gameplay. It's a good Jedi game, good Jedi hack and slash. Next, again, another game that takes really great advantage of the console features, and that is GTA, or Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars. It's been released in other formats and other places, but in this instance you can make use of the touchscreen controls to, for example, hotwire cars, smash windows, various other bits and bobs. It's a good solid DS experience. Now, one of the things with the DS is that when it was first being marketed, you saw lots of adverts with sort of older people holding the console like a book, you know, like this. A very sort of grown-up way to play with a Nintendo console, and that was one of the things that sort of the library and the developers kind of followed on with, trying to appeal to a wide audience, a little bit like the Wii was, you know, trying to appeal to old and young. And so we have games like this one, for example, Paint by DS, very much appealing to people who want to get into, for example, painting, their arts and crafts and all this kind of malarkey. And it's not perfect. Most drawing games, really, in that sense, are a little bit clunky, but you know, it works quite nicely. We also have another, for example, similarly along the lines, that is Mind Your Language, and this is sort of essentially first French for for people who want to learn French. Sort of this side of the DS as an educational arts and crafts or even education machine was quite strong in the library, and this really actually epitomises that, and that is Dr. Kawashima's brain training on the DS. This was actually one of the games that really actually got older people interested. Was the idea that somehow the DS and computer gaming could save your faculties. Next we have a game which I have such a love-hate relationship with. I really want to love it, but it just seems to hate me, and that is The Legend of Zelda: The Phantom Hourglass. This game has an unfortunate central hub, an infamous central hub that you have to return to over and over again. And while it does encourage you to make use of some of the game's features, for example making little notes of what to do when you return to that place, it also just became such a chore, and I just never quite finished the game. And yet I love features in the game. I love the fact that you can blow the mic to make the wind blow. You can fold the thing to sort of copy from one screen to another. It got some wonderful, wonderful features, but it just doesn't quite draw me back in. Certainly not in the same way Breath of the Wild does. I'll have to do another gameplay video of that sometime soon, because I'm still loving it. I'm about 100 hours in now. Anyway, enough of Breath of the Wild. Next we have Dragon Quest IX. This is the first Dragon Quest game that I'd ever played, but actually I'd heard such great things about the series. Somebody had to give it a go, and it really does live up to those great things. And here we have, in lieu of Mario Kart 7, because initially I got the DS Lite. I couldn't afford the 3DS, or indeed I wasn't necessarily sold on the 3DS. I actually ended up getting Mario Kart DS. Now this game is a very solid Mario Kart game. Frankly, they're all very solid Mario Kart games, and so I felt very happy with this purchase. In fact, I still go back to it. I love Mario Kart, no matter what console it's on. Now this one we have. This is Dragon Quest Monsters Joker. It's sort of almost like a Pokemon style game in the Dragon Quest universe. It intrigued me, so I picked it up and I like it. And it's been slightly overshadowed by Dragon Quest and Pokemon in their separate ways, but it's still a good game. Here we have the first of a whole slew of these sorts of games, which basically they're cheap, so I picked them up because they're sometimes quite interesting. This is mystery stories. Essentially, it's a find the item game. Basically, you just go from place to place to place, clicking to find the item or spot the difference. This kind of thing. It's not nothing groundbreaking. Jam Sessions is an interesting music and rhythm based game. I haven't played a whole lot of it, but what I have played of it, I enjoyed. Now here we have part of what is just seemingly increasingly a bizarre path for this particular series, and that is Star Fox. This is Star Fox Command, I do believe. And Star Fox Command is a game which is Star Fox, but it's also not Star Fox. It doesn't quite play like the SNES original. The SNES original. But also doesn't have the fun, for example, the N64 game. It's just a bit. It feels as though the console is getting between you and the game. And I think the same can be. I played the demo of the Star Fox game on the Wii U, and I think the same can be said there. It feels like Nintendo need to really just go back to basics. Let you do a barrel roll for God's sake, this kind of thing. Here we have WarioWare DIY. We love WarioWare in this house, and having it portable was definitely a must for me. Next we have a game which I've purchased on the Wii, on my phone, and on the DS, and that is Secret Files Tunguska. This is a point-and-click adventure, a mystery game, which has some of the most bizarre solutions to problems that you'll ever see in a game. And whenever I get a chance, I like to pick up a version and play it. It's a slightly strange obsession. Next we have Touchmaster. This sounds a bit rude, doesn't it? Touchmaster. Series of mini games. Nothing really stands out. I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest. It's not particularly amazing. Next we have a fairly intriguing, but again not overly special Warhammer 40k game. This particular one, Squad Command, I haven't played a whole lot of because again it feels a bit clunky. And I think this is where the DS library, with the Wii, the library suffers from a whole load of shovelware. With the DS, the console suffers from people not quite knowing how to implement, I think, gameplay mechanics. And I think that particular game could have been good and sort of falls short. And actually there's another one coming up in a bit that I think is similar. This game, though, of course, is excellent. Of course it's going to be excellent. A Mario game on the DS, New Super Mario Brothers. Very solid entry to the Mario franchise, and a whole load of fun. Another solid entry to a franchise on a Nintendo console would be Pokemon Diamond. This game is one which I wanted to try just to see how far the Pokemon franchise had moved on following, I suppose, Pokemon Red, Blue and Yellow, which was my previous favourites. And obviously it hasn't moved on a whole lot on the DS, and on the 3DS with Sun and Moon, it looks like that's been the biggest overhaul so far, but still not a massive move forward. I'm still hoping for that sort of open world Pokemon game, maybe on the Switch, who knows. Next we have the DS version of one of my favourite games of all time, and that is Resident Evil Deadly Silence DS. Yes, Resident Evil DS Deadly Silence. Basically, it's the PlayStation game on the DS. That's, with the bad voice acting and everything. Love it. Next we have Lost in Blue 2. This is an intriguing game. I haven't got that far with it yet though. But if I remember correctly, yeah, it's a game basically where you've been marooned on an island, a very Japanese style island with very Japanese style gameplay. Konami, or Whisper It, Konami made an interesting game, but for some reason I didn't keep on playing, so I need to go back to that one. Next we have a game that I was warned about. I was told that it had awkward controls, but I just didn't care, and that was Ghostbusters on the DS. This game has a terrible way of driving around. Ghostbusters, the video game. But I really enjoyed the Xbox 360 counterpart, and so I wanted to give it a go. I picked it up for like £2 or something. Next we have a game that you do play in that sort of book mode on the DS, and that is Teenage Zombies. A whole load of fun, a fairly quirky title, and one which I strongly recommend. I strongly recommend if you're interested in exploring what the console does. Next we have another one of those point-and-click mystery adventures, basically where you're just finding things on a picture, and that is Agatha Christie's The ABC Murders. This particular game, nothing special, but fairly solid. Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam, not as good as I hoped. I sometimes, and I've said this before in other game collection videos, sometimes you're just in the mood for a good, solid sort of, a solid boarding experience, skateboard game, and that one isn't quite it. Next we have Jack the Ripper. It's another one of those mystery games where you have to basically find things on the screen. Again, nothing too special, nothing to write home about, and actually, frankly, this is a terrible game. In fact, wouldn't recommend it. Here's a game which I hoped would be really interesting, but again, a little bit like the Warhammer game, the controls kind of get in the way, and that is Lego Battles. I was intrigued by the idea of almost having a sort of a RTS game set in the Lego world, and this one just isn't interesting. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a shame. Next we have Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. Why is it that so many Indiana Jones games just turn out to be quite bad? It's such a shame, because on the Wii and on the DS I really wanted some solid Indiana Jonesing, and it always feels clunky and overly complicated. It's just such a shame. Next we have, I forgot I had this. And that is Pokemon Pearl. Clearly, Diamond and Pearl I haven't played enough of, but Pearl in particular then. Another solid entry to the series, which I know I've started. Next we have a classic, and that is Professor Layton and the Curious Village. This game needs no introduction to DS fans, and I love it. I love the fact that it's a very gentle pace. I love the fact that the puzzles are actually quite difficult at times. I love Professor Layton's whole demeanour. He's a very polite, nice man. And I love the Professor Layton series. I also like that he's an archaeologist like me. Very funky. Next we have CSI Dark Motives. This is not as good as Criminal Intent, but having tried Criminal Intent and quite liked it, I wanted to try this one. This one is not as good. Next we have Tiger Woods PGA Tour, a golf game. What else can I say about that, really? Golf on the go. Spore. Now Spore is a game which intrigued me when it was first being talked about back in 2008 or whatever. And here is a game, Spore Creatures, which is I believe sort of an offshoot of that particular title. All about basically evolution, and a very intriguing way of playing, and I've quite liked it so far. We've got got a little bit of the way into the game. Next we have Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. This is another game which I picked up because it's been cheap. And actually the gameplay is quite good fun. You play as Jack Sparrow, and so far the combat in the game is fairly good swashbuckling fun. I'm quite enjoying it. Now we're going to be diving into a combination of DS and 3DS games, basically what I keep in this pocket here. So who knows what's going to come out of this. Next we have Unsolved Crimes. It's another sort of point and click crime solving game. This is one of the better versions of this sort of format which I have in my collection. I'm quite enjoying the fact that you actually get to do some gameplay solving. It's not just find the thing, Next we have Professor Layton and the Miracle Mask. And this game is one which I haven't played yet because I'm trying to make my way through the series chronologically. But I have it because I saw this going for 50p in a charity shop, so I had to get it. Otherwise it was going to be much more expensive elsewhere. Next we have a very interesting 3DS game, and that is Shifting World. Is it World? Shifting World, yes, on the 3DS. This game is very cool because it relies on the interplay of black and white. If I can just get the camera to focus on it. The interplay of black and white in the game, negative and positive space, and you can sort of pop between the foreground and the background. Basically, the gameplay rules that you've been brought up with are being played with, and what you can do, what you can fall through, what you can climb up, all this kind of thing. It's very, very clever, and obviously being 3D, it also adds to that effect. Next we have Star Fox 64 3D. This is the closest that I can say that Nintendo have got to doing a proper Star Fox game in recent years, and crucially it is a remake of Star Fox 64. That's not a bad thing, but it's also not a new thing, and it would be nice to see Nintendo making a new and good Star Fox game. Here we have the Professor Layton game that I'm currently playing, and that is Pandora's Box. This is the second in the series, and again I'm liking it so far. I particularly love the relationship between Professor Layton and his ward. Dead and Furious. This just looks like a whole lot of fun when I first saw it. It basically plays, it seems, a little bit like a sort of Wolfenstein game slash Resident Evil game, and I've been quite enjoying it when I've been playing it. It reminds me of those sort of attempts on the Mega Drive to make 3D shooters, Next we have a game which I really like. I highly recommend this. Lots of fun, and that is Shinobi on the 3DS. If you enjoy Shinobi, and if you've enjoyed I suppose the different iterations throughout time, this is a really good sort of refreshing version of Shinobi. It both harkens back to classic gameplay, but also has some wonderful 3D elements to it as well. I really like it. Next we have Hyrule Warriors. Yep. I got that before I got my Wii U, because I wanted to give Hyrule Warriors a go, so I thought I'd get the 3DS version. Next we have another game which I could get on the Wii U, but haven't so far, and that is Shovel Knight on the 3DS. A good, solid callback to those sort of games that you get on the NES, like Mega Man, this kind of thing, but also with some really good modern twists, and also a good sense of humour. Next we have a game which I cannot sell, sadly, because this game is infamous. This one is Resident Evil Mercenaries 3D, and basically you can't reset the gameplay. So you can't start the game for yourself. Once someone has played the game, that's it. The gameplay, the save data, what's been unlocked and everything is simply on the cartridge. You can't reset it. That's really, really shady from Capcom there. I think they wanted possibly to sell a few more copies, because everyone had to get their own copy. But very frustrating. Next we have a classic on the DS, and that is Cooking Mama. A whole load of fun. I love these sorts of games. One of my favourite versions being on the Wii, and that is, I can't remember its name. I'll put the name on screen. But one of my favourites being that one. Order Up. That's it. There you go. Order Up, I do believe. But Cooking Mama is a good and solid cooking game. Next we have Guilty Gear Dust Strikers. I got this game because basically I was curious about a Guilty Gear game. This was the first one I ever played, and it's terrible. Don't worry, I'm not judging the series based on this, but it seems to be fairly infamous in the Guilty Gear series as a terrible game, so I wouldn't recommend that one. Next we have Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D. I love Donkey Kong Country. I loved it on the SNES, and that is a very worthy successor, and the 3D elements are a whole lot of fun. Next we have Luigi's Mansion 2. Come on, focus. There you go, Luigi's Mansion 2. I love Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube, and this one really lives up to that and builds on some of those mechanics in very pleasing ways. Just again, a whole load of fun. Next we have a game which I just really wanted. I love this game series, and this one is Worms 2. Frankly, Worms on the go, again, a whole lot of fun. Always enjoyed the crazy things that these worms get up to, and in open warfare the craziness continues. Next we have let's just check. Children of Mana. I'll be honest, I haven't played this yet. I don't know if it's any good. I got it because I've heard good things about Children of Mana. Certainly the Mana games, but I haven't played it yet. So maybe you could tell me if it's any good, and whether or not I should be looking forward to it. Next we have Batman 2 on the 3DS, DC Superheroes. Fun, a fun Lego game basically. Nothing too special for the Lego franchise, but again, nice to have it on the go. Next we have the DS Puzzler Collection. This is a really solid classic, in my opinion anyway, on the DS. Seems to be everywhere for very little money, and a whole load of fun. Sometimes you're just in the mood for a good puzzle, whether it's Sudoku or a word search or a sort of a code breaking game, and Puzzler delivers that quite well. And finally we have ending on a downer, we have Hotel Giant on the DS, and this game, to be honest, I just don't know how to play it. I can't figure it out because the game came like this. It came not in its box, and it came without an instruction manual. I could probably look it up online, but the game looks complex. It looks very, to be honest, it looks like a PC port that's been squashed onto a DS screen. A DS screen. So it looks a bit busy for my liking for a DS game anyway. But I'll have to look up the instructions and see what it's like. But there we go, all emptied out. That's my DS and 3DS collection. I think it's a fairly nice collection of games, a good range of games. Some are absolutely terrible, but for the most part, I've got them all for a good reason. Again, because sometimes I'm in the mood for one thing or another, and just like with most of my game collections, I tend to try and touch on most of the bases. I think one thing which I haven't got for this game collection is a basketball game. I probably need a basketball game at some point. But apart from that, I'm happy with it, and crucially, I'm very happy with my 3DS. Okay, yes, the Switch may well see the end of Nintendo's bespoke handheld division, but they really went out on a high in that sense, and at the moment, for the foreseeable future, they're still supporting the console. So long as they're supporting the console, I'll be there happily playing along. Anyway guys, hopefully that's been interesting and or intriguing. If any of the games have caught your eye and you want to know a bit more, just message me and I'll be happy to tell you a bit more about them before you buy, for example. Just tell you what I think about them. But hopefully this has been interesting. As ever guys, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.